Baby, I hope y'all are seated and your seatbelts are fastened tight, because the lies coming out of Zanzibar just hit a brick wall. You heard that right. While the world was busy swallowing that hotel room tragedy story, a hero in a white lab coat just stepped out of the shadows. And honey, she isn't just talking, she's screaming. Word on the street is that a whistleblower nurse from the very hospital where Ashlee Jenae was allegedly rushed is exposing a truth so dark, it makes the official report look like a bedtime story. Are we really supposed to believe Ashlee, a woman whose entire career was built on being 10 steps ahead, just forgot a charger and ended it all in a dark villa? Be for real. The truth they fed us is officially rotting, and this nurse is claiming the toxicology report is the smoking gun. We're talking alleged poisoning, premeditated moves, and a cover-up that goes all the way to the top. Was Ashlee already gone before they even separated her from Joe McCann? Was the charger just a decoy for a crime scene being scrubbed? Grab your tea, because we are about to expose the terrifying reality of what really happened in that villa. Don't blink, the blackout is over. Look, if you thought the official press conference was giving us clarity, you clearly haven't been paying attention to how things work in the shadows of Zanzibar. We are diving into a narrative that is so twisted, so calculated, and so blatantly staged that it's a miracle the authorities kept a straight face while delivering it. Let's talk about the players in this nightmare, because the deeper you dig, the more the dirt starts to fly. We have Joe McCann, the supposed grieving fiancé who was allegedly out here linking up with local women while Ashlee was stuck in a villa. Then we have the hotel staff, who are out here acting like they're part of a scripted drama. And of course, the Tanzanian government, which is currently holding a metaphorical muzzle over everyone's mouth. But the real star of the show today is our anonymous whistleblower, a nurse who says she saw things at that hospital that don't match the hanging narrative even a little bit. The story they want us to believe is that on April 8th, after a massive blowout, Joe was moved to a different villa and Ashlee stayed behind. But honey, the street is whispering a very different tune. There are claims coming in that Ashlee didn't die on the 10th. There are claims she was already cold before Joe even left that room. And if that's true, then every single thing the Director of Criminal Investigations told us was a carefully crafted fairytale designed to protect the tourism industry and keep the status quo. Think about the reputation of someone like Joe McCann. We've seen the reports, we've seen the history of these types of high-profile relationships where one person is the star and the other is just the shadow. People are saying Joe knew exactly what he was doing when he picked a destination where the media is effectively a ghost town. In Tanzania, you don't just post a vlog and go about your day. You need a license. You need permission. You basically need a government hug just to breathe on camera. So when you have an influencer like Ashlee Jenae, someone whose entire life is documented in high definition, suddenly going radio silent on April 5th, that should have been the first alarm bell. She was at the Zanzibar, a 5-star resort that is basically a playground for the elite, and she didn't post a single photo of the beach. Not one story of the sunset. Not a single soft life aesthetic post. For an influencer, being offline for 5 days while on a luxury vacation is basically a medical emergency. It doesn't happen. Unless, of course, she wasn't the one in control of her phone after the 5th. Now, let's get into the meat of this alleged whistleblower report, because this is where the accidental tragedy turns into a premeditated horror movie. This nurse, who is literally risking her life to get this out, claims that when Ashlee's body arrived, the marks didn't match a hanging. She's hinting at a toxic reaction. She's talking about skin discoloration and internal signs that scream poisoning rather than oxygen deprivation from a robe cord. If Ashlee was poisoned, it explains the silence. It explains why she wasn't posting. It explains why Joe was allegedly seen out and about while his fiancée was resting in a dark villa. If she was already incapacitated, he had all the time in the world to set the stage, scrub the digital trail, and wait for the discovery by a hotel attendant who just happened to be carrying a charger like it's a sacred relic. And speaking of that attendant, let's pull the curtain back on this absolute joke of a timeline. The DCI says the attendant went to Villa 25 at 7:30 p.m. and Ashlee asked for a charger. Let's stop right there. Ashlee Jenae, a woman who travels with ring lights, power banks, and probably 3 different backup iPhones, just happened to lose her cord? In a villa that costs thousands of dollars a night. A villa that literally has USB ports and universal outlets built into the walls. Be for real. This is the most dog-ate-my-homework excuse I have ever heard in a criminal investigation. And the attendant just happens to have one on his person. Since when did housekeeping start doubling as a Best Buy mobile unit? It's a plant. It's a narrative tool used to prove she was alive at 7:30 p.m. so they can claim she did the deed in the 20-minute window before he came back. But why the rush? Why the 20-minute window? Because if she died at 7:50 p.m. on the 9th, then Joe has an alibi. But if she died on the 6th or the 7th, Joe is in big trouble. This is why the whistleblower's claims about the state of the body are so explosive. If the body showed signs of advanced decomposition or specific toxic markers that take days to manifest, the 20-minute hanging story falls apart like a wet paper towel. And let's talk about that wardrobe rod. Have you seen the closets in these luxury villas? They are designer pieces, often made with thin aesthetic rods meant to hold a few linen shirts. You're telling me a fully grown woman put her entire weight on that rod and it didn't snap? It didn't even bend. It stayed perfectly intact while she struggled for her life? Physics has left the chat, baby, because that is a scientific miracle that only happens in cover-ups. The whistleblower also mentioned the lights. This is the detail that gave me chills. The attendant said the room was pitch black when he returned. So, in the 20 minutes between getting a charger and the attendant coming back, Ashlee supposedly decided to end it all, found a rope cord, tied it to a rod, positioned herself, and did it all in total darkness. You can't even find the light switch in a hotel room at night without tripping over your suitcase, but she managed a complex knot and a precision setup in a blackout? It's a lie. The lights were off because someone didn't want the struggle to be seen if anyone walked by the windows. The lights were off because the room was already a tomb. And while all this is happening, where is the Tanzanian media? Why are we relying on anonymous leaks and brave nurses? Because the government has turned the country into a digital fortress. When you ban X because people are using it to organize and speak the truth, you aren't a government, you're a warden. They've created an environment where the truth is a liability. If a blogger in Dar es Salaam tries to investigate this, they don't get a Pulitzer, they get a prison cell. They've tied the hands of journalists with these licensing laws, making it a crime to harm the reputation of the country. And what harms a reputation more than a high-profile murder at a luxury resort? So they stay silent. They print the DCI's press release as gospel and they look the other way while a family back home screams for justice. But the internet doesn't have a muzzle. The street, as they call it, is talking louder than ever. People are looking at Joe McCann's social media, looking at the gaps in the timeline, and they are connecting dots that the authorities are trying to erase. They are asking why Joe hasn't addressed the specific claims of his whereabouts. They are asking why the hotel surveillance footage hasn't been leaked or shown to the family. In a resort like Ziri, there are cameras everywhere. You can't walk to the pool without being caught on 5 different lenses. So where is the footage of the attendant? Where is the footage of Joe leaving the villa? Where is the footage of the separation that supposedly happened? It's missing because it doesn't fit the script. The script says suicide. The footage likely says something much more sinister. We are looking at a situation where the tourism dollars are being prioritized over human life. Ashlee Jenae was a guest, a daughter, and a creator, but to the people handling this case, she's just a PR nightmare that needs to be buried as quickly and quietly as possible. But this nurse, this whistleblower who saw the reality on that hospital bed, she's the crack in the dam. She's the one saying the toxicology is where the murder is hidden. She's the one saying the bruising doesn't match the story. And as we transition into the next layer of this scandal, you have to ask yourself, if they lied about the charger, and they lied about the rod, and they lied about the timeline, what else are they hiding in that 3 p.m. hospital report? Because baby, the second part of this investigation is about to make your blood run cold. The silence from the McCann camp isn't just deafening, it's suspicious as hell, and if you think the charger story was the peak of this insanity, honey, stay seated because we are just getting to the part where the medical reality clashes with the corporate fiction. This whistleblower nurse isn't just some random person with a grudge. She is someone who allegedly stood in that room when the body was brought in, and she's claiming that what she saw looked nothing like a woman who had been struggling in a robe. According to these leaks, the skin tone and the lack of specific burst capillaries in the eyes, which is a hallmark of the official narrative, just weren't there. Instead, there was a strange, bluish-grey tint to the extremities that points directly toward a systemic failure. You know what causes that? It's not a rope, baby. It's a chemical interference with the heart and lungs. If the toxicology report actually shows traces of a sedative or a localized toxin, then this entire suicide story is officially dead on arrival. Now, let's look at the logistics of this alleged poisoning, because people are asking, how would that even happen? Well, think about the setting. You're in a luxury villa, it's hot, you're arguing, and you're stressed. You reach for a drink, a bottle of water, or maybe a peace offering from someone you're supposed to trust. If Ashlee was incapacitated first, then everything that happened afterward, the moving of Joe to a different villa, the separation, the 7:30 p.m. charger visit, was nothing more than a carefully choreographed stage play. It gives the perpetrator hours, maybe even days, to scrub the room of any actual evidence. And while the DCI is standing there at a podium talking about villa numbers and minute-by-minute movements, they are completely ignoring the fact that Ashlee's digital footprint stopped days before she was found. You mean to tell me a woman whose entire income is based on engagement just decided to stop working while at one of the most Instagrammable spots on earth? Please. The only reason an influencer stops posting is if they physically can't, or if someone else has their phone and doesn't know the passcode to the camera roll. This brings us back to the terrified reality of the local staff. You have to understand that in a place like Zanzibar, the hotel isn't just a building, it's a powerhouse. These resorts bring in millions, and the employees are often under extreme pressure to protect the brand at any cost. If a high-profile guest dies, the first instinct isn't always justice, it's containment. Is it possible that the attendant was told exactly what to say? Is it possible that the charger was a code word for something else entirely? Think about it. The report says he knocked, got no answer, saw the lights were off, and just walked in? Since when? If I'm in a 5-star villa and the lights are off, housekeeping doesn't just barge in because they're worried about my battery percentage. They leave a note or wait for a call. The fact that he entered so quickly suggests he already knew what he was going to find. He wasn't checking on a guest. He was discovering a body that had likely been there much longer than they want us to know. And honey, the drama doesn't stop at the hotel gates. Let's talk about the missing 48 hours. If the last post was on the 5th and she was found on the 9th, where is the footage of her in between? Where are the witnesses who saw her at the breakfast buffet or the pool? In a resort of that caliber, people notice things. Other guests in villas 24 and 26 should have heard more than just one big blowout. They should have heard her voice, seen her on her balcony, or captured her in the background of their own vacation photos. But so far, there is nothing. It's like Ashlee Jenae vanished off the face of the earth on April 5th, only to reappear as a tragic headline 5 days later. The whistleblower is hinting that the state of the body when it arrived at the hospital suggested she hadn't eaten or moved in a significant amount of time. If she was poisoned or sedated, she could have been lying in that villa for days while the world thought she was just taking a break from social media. Then there's the issue of the relocation. The DCI made a huge deal about moving Joe to Villa 65, which is almost 10 minutes away. They framed this as a safety measure to keep them apart. But if you look at it from an investigative lens, it looks more like an alibi builder. How could he have done anything? He was 10 minutes away in another room. But honey, who saw him stay in that room? Who was guarding the path between Villa 65 and Villa 25 in the middle of the night? Nobody. It's a luxury resort, not a high-security prison. If you know the layout, you can move between those villas in the dark without ever being seen by a single soul. And if the cameras were conveniently down or facing the wrong way, then that 10-minute gap means absolutely nothing. The public reaction in Tanzania is also a massive red flag. Usually, when a celebrity dies in a foreign country, the local influencers are all over it. They're at the hospital, they're at the airport, they're digging for the scoop. But here, crickets. Total silence. Why? Because they know the stakes. They've seen what happens to people who ask too many questions about the tourism industry or the ruling party's narrative. There are reports of local bloggers being visited by authorities just for resharing the whistleblower's claims. If the story is a simple suicide, why the extreme level of intimidation? Why the media blackout? You don't hide the truth unless the truth is ugly enough to burn the whole house down. Even UN experts have been calling out the government for enforced disappearances and silencing journalists. If they are willing to make their own citizens disappear for a tweet, what makes you think they wouldn't help cover up a scandal to protect a multi-million-dollar resort partnership? This isn't just a murder mystery anymore. It's a geopolitical chess game where Ashlee was a pawn. The whistleblower nurse is saying that the hospital staff was told to keep the hanging narrative consistent, but she couldn't live with the lie. She saw the toxicology markers. She saw the lack of the expected physical trauma to the neck that comes with a wardrobe rod incident. She saw a woman who looked like she had been put to sleep, not a woman who had fought for her last breath in a dark closet. And let's go back to the wardrobe for a second. The logistics of using a bathrobe cord on a standard rod are a nightmare. Those cords are thick, slippery, and not designed for knots that hold weight. To do that in the dark, with no experience, in under 20 minutes. It's a physical impossibility. Unless, of course, the scene was staged by someone who had plenty of time and a reason to make it look like a tragic choice. Someone who knew that the suicide label would stop most people from asking further questions. But they didn't count on the digital age. They didn't count on the fact that an influencer's silence is more loud than her posts. They didn't count on a nurse who valued her soul more than her job. As we move into the final phase of this investigation, we have to look at the money and the motives. What did Joe have to gain? What did the hotel have to lose? And why is the government of Tanzania so desperate to keep us from looking at the toxicology report? The answers are starting to leak out, and baby, when we get to the final part of this, you're going to see why this whistleblower is the most dangerous person in Zanzibar right now. The web is unraveling, the soft life was a lie, and the real horror was happening long before the attendant ever knocked on that door. Stay right there, because the fallout is about to get nuclear. The nuclear fallout from this case is finally hitting the fan, and the investigative findings we are seeing now suggest that the cover-up might be even more expensive than the actual crime. We are entering the final stage of this nightmare, where the hypothetical legal actions and the absolute collapse of the official narrative are becoming unavoidable. This whistleblower nurse has allegedly handed over notes that contradict the entire hospital report filed at 3 p.m. the following day. If these notes are real, they show that Ashlee's vital signs upon arrival were not those of someone who had just been struggling minutes before. They were the signs of someone whose system had been slowing down for a very long time. We are talking about a potential financial crisis for the resort and a massive diplomatic probe that could involve international authorities if the poisoning angle is proven. Let's look at the accidental corruption that happens when a government and a massive corporation decide to protect a brand. People are already calling for a total boycott of the Ziri Zanzibar and a complete investigation into the Director of Criminal Investigations' ties to the hospitality sector. Why? Because the math isn't Maything, honey. If the toxicology shows a specific sedative, something that can't just be bought at a local pharmacy, then we have to ask, who had access? Who was seen leaving the villa? The rumors of Joe McCann linking up with local women aren't just gossip anymore. They are potential evidence of a man who was already checked out of his relationship and looking for a way to clear his plate without a messy, expensive public breakup. In the world of high-profile influencers, a breakup is a PR disaster. But a tragedy can sometimes be turned into a narrative of the grieving widower. The fallout is already spreading. We are hearing whispers of high-level resignations within the local police force because some officers allegedly refused to sign off on the wardrobe rod theory. Can you imagine? Even the people in the room are saying, "I'm not putting my name on this lie." There is a rumored internal memo floating around that suggests the charger attendant has been sent away on a paid leave and hasn't been seen at the hotel since the press conference. Why hide the primary witness? If he's a hero who tried to save her, he should be available to speak. Instead, he's vanished into the same digital blackout that the government has used to silence the rest of the country. And let's talk about the treason charges and the 98% vote logic. In a place where you get hit with a treason charge just for questioning an election, imagine what happens when you question a police report that involves the country's most valuable industry. The intimidation is real. We've seen reports of activists who tried to hold a candlelight vigil for Ashlee being told to disperse or face consequences. The government isn't just playing. They are terrified. They are terrified that if one brick falls, if one nurse's testimony is taken seriously, the entire facade of Zanzibar being a safe luxury paradise will crumble. And with that crumble goes the billions in tourism revenue. But here is the kicker that everyone is missing: the autopsy report strangulation detail. If it was strangulation by hand and not by rope, the marks on the neck would be completely different. A rope leaves a specific V shape or a horizontal line depending on the drop. Manual strangulation leaves bruising patterns that no wardrobe rod can replicate. The whistleblower claims the bruising was circumferential and deep, which usually indicates a struggle with another human being, not a bathrobe cord. If that is true, then the poisoning might have been the first step to weaken her. And the hanging was the staged second step that went wrong because the rod didn't break and the lights were off. The public backlash is hitting a fever pitch. On TikTok and X, the hashtag for Ashlee is being flooded with "Where is the footage?" and "Show us the tox report." People are even starting to investigate Joe McCann's past, looking for any sign that this wasn't the first time he's been involved in a blowout or a dispute. The pressure is building for an independent, international autopsy to be performed in a neutral country. But guess what? Reports are saying the government is making it nearly impossible to transport the body without a finalized local report that basically closes the case forever. It's a race against time to bury the truth before the world demands an exhumation. If this whistleblower is caught, the consequences for her will be dire. We're talking about a country where people disappear for less. But she has already sparked a fire that they can't put out with a simple press release. Influencers around the world are starting to realize that the soft life in certain jurisdictions comes with a hard reality. You are safe as long as you are posting pretty pictures, but the moment you become a liability, the media blackout is ready and waiting for you. The tourism industry in Tanzania is facing a PR nightmare that no amount of influencer marketing can fix. People are canceling trips, bloggers are warning their followers, and the anonymous whistleblowers are the only ones telling us what's really going on behind the gilded doors of Villa 25. What we are looking at is a hypothetical financial crisis for the entire region. If Zanzibar is labeled as a place where high-profile deaths are covered up by the state, the elite will stop coming. The treason of telling the truth is that it hurts the bottom line. So, they stick to the script. They stick to the suicide narrative because it's clean. It doesn't require a trial. It doesn't require a deep dive into Joe McCann's phone. It doesn't require an explanation for why the lights were off or why a woman who loved her life would suddenly decide to end it in a dark closet over a charger. But the truth has a way of leaking out of the cracks. Whether it's through a nurse's notes, a guest's grainy cell phone video that hasn't been deleted yet, or the digital footprint that stops on April 5th, the pieces are falling into place. We are waiting for the moment when the international community forces a hand. We are waiting for the moment when the hospital nurse becomes a household name for her bravery. Until then, we have to keep asking the questions they don't want answered. We have to keep looking at the wardrobe rod, the 20-minute window, and the mysterious local women Joe was allegedly seeking out. The fallout will be massive. We are talking about potential lawsuits against the Ziri Hotel for negligence or worse. We are talking about Joe McCann being a persona non grata in the entertainment world. And we are talking about a shift in how we view these paradise destinations. The muzzle might be on the local media, but the world is watching, and the world is not buying the story. The investigation isn't over. It's just moving out of the hands of the people who want it buried and into the hands of the people who want justice for Ashlee Jenae. Every like, every share, and every comment is a middle finger to the blackout. They can silence the bloggers in Tanzania, but they can't silence the millions of us who know that a phone charger isn't a suicide motive. As the legal probes begin and the international pressure mounts, the truth about what happened between April 5th and April 10th will come out. Whether it was poisoning, manual strangulation, or a staged tragedy, the whistleblower has given us the map. Now, we just have to follow the trail of breadcrumbs through the dark villas and the silent hospitals until we reach the person who held the robe, the person who held the poison, and the person who held the pen that wrote the cover-up. The fallout is coming, and baby, it's going to be a blowout that no hotel staff can clean up. Everything we've discussed, The corruption, the abuse of power, the staged crime scenes, and the terrifying silence of the local media points to a single conclusion. This wasn't a tragedy of a broken heart, it was a tragedy of a broken system. A system that valued a hotel's rating over a woman's life. A system that thought we were too distracted by the soft life to notice the hard lies. But they were wrong. We noticed. And now, the truth is finally being uncovered, one whistleblower at a time. The world is seated, the tea is boiling, and the final curtain is about to rise on the most calculated cover-up of 2026. Honey, my head is literally spinning after all of this, and I know yours is too. But now I have to ask you the questions the Tanzanian authorities are trying to ban. Do you really believe a wardrobe rod and a bathrobe cord are enough to close this case? Or are you standing with the whistleblower nurse and sensing that there was something much more toxic happening in that villa? Was the media blackout and the ex-ban enough to keep the truth from reaching you? Or do you see the same red flags that I do? The comment section is the only place they can't muzzle us, so I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know. Do you think the 5-day digital silence from Ashlee was the real smoking gun? And what about Joe? Do you think he knew exactly how protected he would be in a place where the tourism industry is king? We aren't letting this story fade into the shadows, so make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe with notifications turned on. We are monitoring every leak and every anonymous tip, and you do not want to miss the next update. Stay loud, stay skeptical, and remember, the truth only disappears if we stop looking for it. Catch you all in the next one.